I'm Dylan Ratigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now on Bootstrapping, I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world.
Coffee has become an important part of our lives, our routines, our community, feeling refreshed, or simply taking a relaxing moment to ourselves. Steeped coffee is the new single-serve standard. It's the simplest way to make a great cup of coffee anywhere. For the first time, we've brought quality and convenience together. All you need is hot water, and our guilt-free packaging is fully compostable. We use direct trade specialty coffee, roast locally in small batches, precision grind our beans, nitro seal each pack for freshness, and put the environment first. Every detail is accounted for from farm to cup and beyond. So far, we've done a ton of work to get this thing off the ground. We've gone through the entire patent IP process, trademark process, done international trips to pick out the absolute best equipment, developed amazing relationships, hired an extremely talented core team, secured manufacturing production locations, designed branding, developed our eco packaging, and undergone rigorous taste testing and trials. We've put everything on the line to get this thing going. Literally everything. Whether you're at home, working, or on the go, if you love coffee, Steeped was made for you. I came up with this idea 7 years ago, knowing that there should be an easier way to make great coffee.
Welcome back to tastylive. I am Dylan Ratigan. Time for some more bootstrapping. My guest today, Josh Wilbur, the company Steeped Coffee. Josh, nice to see you. You're going into some dangerous territory here with this business, my man. Putting coffee in a tea bag. Tell me what you're up to.
Yeah, we cracked the code. We figured it out with how to do that, and so it's not quite coffee in a tea bag. It's a very kind of special engineered steeped brew bag. A lot of R&D and everything went into it, and we were working with specialty roasters. And one day we had that aha moment. We finally figured it out, cracked the code, and we're able to brew amazing, really tasty coffee with some of the top roasters in the world. And we created a new brewing method, the steeped coffee brewing method, and it lets you brew coffee without a machine, with just water, kind of like a tea bag, but how it then now works for coffee. And so,
again, like I said, dangerous territory, because coffee people are very serious people, and so and there, as you know, you go from one country to the next. You go from one part of a country to the other part of the country, and some people are doing a little two-part thing with the bubbler, and then the French press. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen every possible.
And I do it all myself.
Right.
I love pour overs. I love my French press. I love going into the coffee shop. All of that. And I think the beautiful thing about Steeped is it sits next to all of those things, and it just has its own space. And so
let's talk quality first, because obviously everybody's gonna be like, no, listen, you can't, if you don't, whatever it is, if
it doesn't taste good, what's the point?
It's not going to be good coffee. What am I doing? And so I'm interested, what is it? I'm sure there's something proprietary in the design that you're not going to want to tell me or anybody, but is there any, what is it? Let's try it this way. Why is it that putting coffee in a normal tea bag turns out so badly?
Yeah, no, I did that early on. Bought some material, stapled it up, just tried to play around with things. It was good proof of concept, and said, okay, this could kind of work. You make all your friends try it and all that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I really dove in, international trips, sampling just hundreds of different filter materials, all of the portions and the grind size and how it all delicately fits together. And when we're all said and done, we end up ultrasonically welding the edges of the bag. It's beautiful. All of it's compostable, so everything's certified compostable with it. Um, and we got the portions right. We got everything dialed in. And at the end of the day, we're able to work with the top specialty coffee companies. We're talking companies that won't even leave their whole beans on the shelf for more than a couple weeks because they don't want it to tarnish their reputation. And here they are pre-grinding with a shelf life, uh, in the steeped method. And what they expect is exactly what they get is their coffee, however it tastes, is brewed in our method and it tastes like it should at the coffee shop. And
And so my perception, and it's just based on nothing other than drinking coffee, is that pressure is a relevant part of it, whether it's the gravitational pressure of the water in a drip, in a funnel, or
yeah,
whether it's the pressure, obviously, in a French press. And I'm curious, obviously, that can't be entirely correct on my part if you can steep it without pressure. And
yeah,
so I'm just interested in, or at least if not pressure, then some sort of flow, right?
yep.
And it sounds, in my perception of a steep bag is it lacks flow and it lacks pressure, which I would thought are two critical aspects.
Yeah, water flow is a really important thing to figure out. A normal coffee filter will actually hold water in so it drips out slow,
Right.
but there's nothing preventing the water from going into the bag. A tea bag, for instance, has so much water flow that the coffee would end up all in your cup. And so getting that delicate balance was a really big deal. Um, but there's lots of brewing methods, like a French press doesn't use pressure. There's lots of different things like that. Um, but at the end of the
Okay.
day, it really comes down to, I guess even with steeped, you're going to pour over. So it's kind of like your pour over. You pour into the
Okay.
bag, a little bit different than
Through the
tea.
bag.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you kind of pour down into the bag.
Okay.
That's like your pour over step. You give it a dip and a dunk. That's your agitation. It'll actually bloom and get crema right in the bag and on the top of your cup because it's so fresh and the way we do it. And then that's like your French press, your full immersion brewing. And then
Mhm.
you just let it ride. It doesn't get bitter like tea. It just keeps getting better until it plateaus. And so we've got that balance dialed where you don't have to take out your bag and have another whole mess. You just leave it in. And by the time your water's cool enough to drink because you're putting hot water into it, you're
Mhm.
ready to go. And so it's really convenient and you don't need any of that equipment or any of the machines to do this. And so if you look forward on that, that's airlines, hotels, in your car, like camping, and you can have that same cup of coffee in your living room by the fire, or you can have that same cup of coffee at the coffee shop or in the woods by the fire,
Mhm.
and that's the beauty of it. It's so simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to achieve, and we figured that out the long way, but for everyone's benefit. So
Mhm. And so I can see all it. It's wonderful. I can see all of it. So then the other piece, and you already referenced it, which is also the sort of obvious issue, is shelf life and freshness of a pre-ground high quality coffee bean, and sustaining that in a way that you could. I'm assuming you're imagining packaging this and having this on grocery store shelves, which assumes at least a few weeks of being ground up in a box before
yeah,
it's made
we actually have a
coffee.
year shelf life, if you can imagine that. And so we have a very special process where off of, the roast, we grind and then we let it what we call degas for a very specific amount of time, depending on the shade of the bean. And then it gets immediately packaged and it's triple nitrogen sealed. And so that nitro sealing removes all of the oxygen. And so what you're left with and oxygen leads to oxidation, which is what makes food go bad. And so what you're left with is, a pack that's almost stopping the clock, freezing the time on that coffee from when we grind it to when we package it. And when you open up a bag, even months later, don't do it on an airplane unless you want like three rows
Right.
in every direction to come at you because it smells incredible. And it's just a really nice experience when you open that up and you're like, wow, that was freshly ground coffee.
And is that technique also used when they sell ground coffee, premium ground coffee?
Not really. No, they have degas valves, things like that. But the way we do it, we actually completely seal it in, and that's why we have that specific degas time.
Okay.
Um, and it completely seals the package from the outside environment, the moisture, or oxygen, or anything like that.
Okay. Okay. So we've made it through two of the three issues here. So the process works. It's self-evident.
Yep.
You're dealing with freshness and sort of by way of nitrogen.
Yep.
It sounds like nitrogen might be expensive. Like it sounds like what's the price per cup relative to everything from whole beans, and I'm grinding to and we haven't gotten into the pods. The whole pod world is
Yeah. Yeah.
a universe. But anyway, how does this cost out?
Yeah. So the good thing is you don't need to buy a machine, whether it's pods or capsules, and you have to keep rebuying the machine, and that's a whole nother waste on its own that's not recycled. And so you don't have that upfront cost. It's one of the only methods that you can have freshly brewed coffee, especially in compostable
With no
packaging
gear,
with no gear.
yeah.
Yeah, nothing. So all you need is water. You can even do cold brew with it. You can put it in your fridge. It's ready the next morning, and you've got single serve cold brew. And so, it's um, at the end of the day, uh, it's comparable to single serve coffee, in a sense from a
Meaning its
price
price is
point.
like a pod.
Yeah, price much like it, but there's a lot of difference between the pod and steeped, where you've
Sure.
got, premium materials being used that are good for the environment, right? But then you've also got really high-end premium coffee that people are using, so us included with our in-house brand. Um, and then you've got more coffee, unlike pods and capsules that have, 4 to 10 grams plus or minus. We're at 14.2. We've got that proper coffee to water ratio that's recommended by like the Specialty Coffee Association and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and so, for what we're doing, it's if you were to go into a coffee shop and have that cup of coffee, it's $4 to $6. And with steeped, you're in the $1 to $2 range, depending on the bulk configuration.
Mhm.
Or if we're working with hotels and things like that, more on a commercial standpoint, then we can be very competitive with all of the single serve stuff.
Okay, so now challenge number four, sir. I have to imagine, well, I know for a fact that generally distribution, particularly grocery, widespread distribution is a racket, right? Shelf space is a mafia undertaking. It's not the greatest, the best, highest quality product is not necessarily the product that gets the shelf space, right? It's the people who have the leverage, like Nestle or Kraft or whoever, where they say, I control the shelf space, or you get none of my product. And I
Right.
would imagine that the big coffee dealers, I don't, whether it's Lavazza or whoever the sort of mafia is in the coffee world, that they have pretty strong control over the shelf space. One, how is my assumption correct? And then two, how are you navigating distribution?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so the good news is we play really nice with roasters. We're a roaster partner. And so whether it's locally here, we've got Verve and Cat and Cloud. Verve just got Roaster of the Year here in Santa Cruz. We're partnered with them now. We just announced that on Friday. Um, we've got some incredible roasters across the country. Counterculture is another one, that we're partnered with. And it works because it's a different brewing method. So it's not competing for shelf space with, say, whole beans or ground coffee or like, pods or something like that. And if this is kind of fun, but if you look at the shelf space on most grocery stores, you'll notice the tea aisle is really big compared to the coffee aisle, which is typically a sliver in
Cider. Yeah.
comparison, right? The coffee industry, what, 80 something billion in the US, tea is like 14. So why is there such a difference between those ratios? And it's not because of loose leaf tea. And that's what we've still got with coffee. We have coffee beans, whole and ground, and things like that. But what we don't have is a convenient single serve method until steeped, where anyone can just walk by the shelf and purchase it without having to own something first.
Without having the gear. The pod
Yeah.
is the only thing that approaches that, and the pod requires all kinds of gear, obviously.
So what we're doing is we're actually seeing that we're looking at creating the grocery like coffee space to be larger, to be
in more of a ratio for what one would expect with coffee versus tea. And that's, in part because it's completely accessible to everybody. There's
Mm,
no barriers, whether someone doesn't want the environmental impact or
mm,
someone doesn't own a certain machine or, they want a special, roaster that they love. And so when we're working with roasters, it's really a great add-on. And so
mhm,
we haven't had any issues with getting on shelf. We've gotten a bunch of grocery awards and, best new product every year and things like that. And so when we went into grocery, I think we landed like 6,000 locations in less than 2 years.
mhm,
But what we're really focused on right now is helping for a value add experience for food service. And
mhm.
that's the hotel guest, the office employee, the airline passenger or cruise. And that's where we're seeing where, just like you said at the beginning, hey, could this be good? That's an initial reaction that we have to overcome because it's like, hey, can this be good? Why hasn't this been done before? Um,
Mm.
but then once someone tries it, we get that aha moment and it creates that emotional connection. And so now they want to share it and tell everyone about it. And so that's what we're really relying on to help spread this method and make it just mainstream. So everyone's heard about it, not just in the specialty coffee.
Why hasn't it been done before?
It's
And,
not
and
easy.
why is
Yeah.
it a Santa Cruz startup as opposed to a coffee kingpin of some kind that's already, face deep in $80 billion worth of coffee and product development? They're like,
Yeah.
somebody
And and
hire the equivalent of Josh to figure it out.
and we're in good relationship with all of those players on both sides and everyone in the middle. And so a lot of times development like this would come up and from passion and inspiration, and then all of a sudden, there's future acquisitions and partnerships and things like that. And we look forward to those conversations as they continue to develop. Um, but it was an idea. I was going to the in-laws like 10 years ago. I started packing a whole suitcase full of beans and grinder and a scale.
Because
And
you
I was
want to bring your coffee with you. You didn't trust their coffee.
right. It's like I didn't want the single serve option that they had or
Like
instant.
my mother, I take my mother to Italy and she wants to bring her French press from New York. I'm like, anyway, that's what I say. Coffee people are insane. So
Yeah,
anyway,
but bless her heart, right? It's
yeah,
we've all got that ritual that we love.
yeah.
And the thing that's really fun about Steeped is seeing people pull that into their lives, create their own rituals around it, becomes part of their day. It's the mom who's, going to school and has one hand and can just make it to go cup and go, or a nurse or doctor. There's so many use cases for it, whether it's camping or at home or just on the go. And
Mhm.
so for us, it's just let's just get into people's hands. And so we're doing a lot of work with like hospitality, hotels, and really elevating the experience for the guest. Because it's a
Is that your first go to market as wholesale deals with institutions like that?
well, sort of. We started with roaster partnerships, and so we now have over 500 roasters that we partner with, and we package in our method, like the steep brew method for, you name it. And there's
Mhm.
big ones, small ones, and lots of big ones coming. And so um, our next go-to-market strategy was really around that food service, so we could get it to people and they could just enjoy it for free as a value add. The weekday employee becomes the weekend user sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and and then COVID happened. And so we were launching food service in March of 2020. And so we pivoted into grocery about 3 years early
Mhm.
to plan, but we just had to make it work and got out there. Um, and so,
And so how many, what is it a bag? What do I call this thing?
yeah, steeped bag or a steeped brew bag. Yeah.
So how many steeped brew bags have been steeped at this moment in time?
Oh,
Ballpark.
shoot, I should get that total number on there, but I mean millions and millions,
Million. Okay.
millions and
So
millions, tens of millions. Yeah.
tens of millions. And how many years have you been offering these bags?
Yeah, we technically officially incorporated in like 2017, launched
Okay.
product in 18, and then we launched our roaster program later that year, really took off in 2019.
Mhm.
We were, one of the fastest growing companies in 22 with the Inc. 5000 list, like 18 in food and beverage.
Mhm.
And then last year we've uh, kind of taken things to the next level with our phase 2 of our business model. And that's where we're going out there and really going for scale and partnerships and getting this so everyone can hear about it. So,
And the brand is Steeped Coffee. Like
yeah, so the brewing,
that's the marketplace brand.
yeah, there's we have an in-house brand. It's called Steep Coffee now, probably something else later. We had to have something to go kick the tires. But our focus and our portfolio is really around all of our licensed partners that all these amazing roasters that we partner with.
So it's the roaster first and then a steeped powered, like a powered by, or kind
Yeah,
of.
we're just the brewing method. And so think of like Keurig with a K cup. You might have Starbucks or your Dunkin' Donuts or Pete's Coffee or whatever in that pod. We do that same thing, but we have a steeped brew bag that we're.
And what's your intellectual property protection on this thing?
Yes. So we have we're patent pending in the US with a 2017 priority date and feeling really good about getting that over the finish line. We also have 4 international patents already and growing in about another 40 countries that we're working on right now. Lots of trademarks. We've created the language around the whole space because we created the space and we license that to all of our roasters so they use that out in the marketplace.
Mhm.
And then we just try to be really good at what we do. We're a B Corp, we're a public benefit corporation. Everything we do from packaging is compostable or some kind of sustainable, the best we can do.
Mhm.
And so by being a company that people want to align with and they're proud to be connected with, that's going to help us ultimately grow faster and weed out competition because we're partnering with the people that we might compete with, and we're adding a really good value add service to their amazing coffee, just making it available in a much more convenient way as we kind of innovate and reimagine single serve coffee and how that can actually be even more convenient without being plugged in. And how can it be even more delicious and taste amazing with these great partnerships with these roasters,
Mhm.
so people can just have that amazing coffee they love wherever they go.
And then what are you raising money for?
Yeah, so we're doing a bridge right now. We've got our Series A coming up at the back half of this year. We're just growing and need continue to just fund
Working
things as we
capital.
continue to grow. Yeah, that's all. We
Wow.
don't have any CapEx or large things to take care of. It's very streamlined. We've got our process down, and now we're just growing. So it's just
Cool.
keep going.
Cool. Well, is that tea or coffee in that cup?
Oh yeah, you know it.
It looks like a tea. It looks like is that a steeped coffee tag or is that a?
That
All
is a
right.
steeped
All right.
coffee tag. Yep. And so
It
I
would have
have
been
my steeped
genius if you were
coffee.
drinking chamomile.
Yeah, no, I gotta be prepped up for this interview. So
You can't
I
be
had my
you
steep.
can't be the CEO of Steep Coffee drinking tea in public.
No, no.
Congratulations. Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Josh Wilbur, the company Steeped Coffee. You can check it out on the Republic website. I am Dylan Ratigan. You're watching Bootstrapping. More Tasty Live after this.
Thanks.